Continuing our session on the major civilizations, we would be focusing on Egyptian civilization today. In the past lectures, we have talked about what are the cradles of civilization. We have focused on Mesopotamian civilization, coming on to Egyptian civilization. Now, Egyptian civilization, as you can see here, you have the desert area of Africa. Within this desert area of Africa, you have one major river that flows through, and Herodotus, a Greek historian, rightly called it as the gift of Nile. Now, this region, you have the Nile river that flows, and as you can see with the markings of the pen here, this is the path of the Nile river. The present day regions of Sudan and Egypt are being drained by the Nile river. Now, this Nile river had further subtributaries as Blue Nile and White Nile, which joined together to form the Nile river. Now, if we look on to the picture of Egypt, the Egyptian civilization, the Great Pyramids of Egypt, the mummification are some of the terms that you might have heard and come across. But to understand the story of Egyptian civilization in detail, let's understand the two major divisions. So the two major divisions were the Lower Egypt and the Upper Egypt. Now please note where the Nile River drained, that was the area which was known as Lower Egypt. Now, in the Lower Egypt, you had Alexandria as one of the major settlements. Then you had Cairo as another major settlement. You had Tunis here. So, that was Tunis. That was another major settlement. And then you had another major town closer to Alexandria, which was Rosetta. So, Rosetta was another major town. If we look on to the Upper Egypt region, you had four major settlements that were there. First was the Valley of Kings, the Valley of Queens. Then you had the region of Thebes, which is also known as the present day Luxor, and you also had the Karnak. So those were some of the major towns of the Egyptian civilizations that were present. The Valley of Kings and Valley of Queens was very important. Now this Egyptian civilization had numerous kingdoms that ruled the region. You had numerous kings that were seen during this, but the whole story of Egyptian civilization symbolizes few things. Firstly, they were great mathematicians, astronomers. They were very skilled with medicine and physiology. So they had a lot of knowledge of medical sciences and medical advancement, and that's why we see mummies and mummification process. And definitely with this mummification, we also see that they used to keep in things which a person would require. So all their ornaments, clothes, water, food was kept along with the mummies, and that was with the concept that life exists after death. Now this concept was very similar to what we have done in the Mesopotamian civilization. Mesopotamians also believed in the concept of life after death. Now here we have the region of Persian Gulf, and this is the region of the Sahara Desert. Now if we zoom this, we would understand that there is a lot of greenery that is seen around this river Nile, and therefore this is also known as one of the fertile crescents. Now if we look onto the hierarchy, as we discussed, we would have the old kingdom from 3000 to 2000, sorry, it's 2000 BC. Okay, then you would have the Middle Kingdom from 2000 to 1700. Between the Middle and the New Kingdom, you had the Hyksos tribes. Now these were the tribes of Egypt that existed for nearly 100 years here, and the significant developments were seen during this tribal regime. The next important thing that we need to understand is how the things changed, and that was with the advent of the kind of settlements that were seen along the Nile River. So two important tributaries of Nile, as you could see, were the White Nile region and the Blue Nile region, and together these White Nile and Blue Nile river join to form the main river Nile, on which you have the Aswan Dam as of now. So again, a very important strategical location that you could see. Now, as you would move forward, you would understand that most of the towns that you would see had a lot of greenery during that time. Now, Pharaohs was the name for the rulers. So, the people who ruled in the Egyptian civilization were known as Pharaohs. Now, that is one of the very important concepts that we need to understand, that when the Egyptian civilization existed, it was attacked by numerous civilizations. They were Babylonians, Assyrians, and later on you had advent of Alexander the Great, who established Alexandria, and finally there was the collapse of the Egyptian civilization that was seen. Now, during this period, there were 7 queens who ruled in the region of Egypt. They were known as Cleopatra. Now, of these, Cleopatra 7 was very important because she was one who was acquainted with 7 different languages, and basically she was one of the 7 queens and acquainted with 9 different languages, and she had a remarkable kind of administration and ruling authority. Two of the majors was Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, who were working with Cleopatra. So pharaohs were very important. They were considered similar to the Mesopotamian civilization. They were considered on the topmost in the hierarchy. So that was about understanding the pharaohs. Now the next important thing that we need to understand is the development. Now the towns developed, but these towns developed organically. So 2 important towns, Memphis in the regions of Lower Egypt and Thebes in the regions of Upper Egypt. Thebes, the present day Luxor, as we could understand. So as you can see, even today with the Memphis, you see a lot of greenery around, and this is what we were talking about. Now what used to happen in the Nile River? Nile River used to have an annual flooding. With the annual flooding, you had fertile soil that used to deposit on the surrounding areas of the Nile, and therefore this was a boon in the desert area. You had lot of fertile soil with dates, vegetation, fruits that was seen. Barley and wheat being 2 major staple crops, which we would understand in a while. So this Memphis was one of the major towns. Memphis and Thebes are believed to have grown organically. That means because of the river, these towns flourish. So this is one of the regions. If I zoom out, you would see this is again onto the vicinity of the Nile flowing in. So here you have the Nile River, and in the vicinity of Nile you have the Thebes. So Thebes again was one of the important locations that were there, and both of these towns flourished organically. Now all the towns that were present in the region of Egypt had some unique features. What were those? The first unique features were they were established at right angles. Each of the town had a window on the top so that the direct sunlight can enter into the house. Now there was a lot of hierarchy that was seen in the structure of the housing. Now hierarchy in the sense of the rich and the poor. So usually a poor used to have a single house. However, a rich person used to have a house where there were lots of open spaces around. You had swimming pool, garden areas all within the house. Normally an average person had a house of 1 or 2 rooms. A average person had an house of 3 rooms around, and a person who had a luxury living used to have at least 3 rooms with courtyards, 3 stories, and then different regions demarcated for swimming. You had gardens, courtyard region, and so on and so forth. Now if you see onto the housing structure, as we said, each of the houses had windows on the top, and as a result direct sunlight could enter the house. As you can also see, the houses had flat roofs. So sun-baked clay was used for the housing structure, and flat roof structure was seen. This is a house which is a kind of a major house, and these were the houses of the common man. Now this house, as you could see, has lot of structures, open spaces that is being built around. So this was a kind of differentiation of the houses that was seen. So a kind of royal palace, we could say, that was existing had a very importance. Now the royal palaces, if you can look here, you have the palace area. Now this palace area had a kind of moat. Moat was a kind of valley that was there, and this valley area was the region where you had water that was filled so that the attackers, or basically those trying to attack the territory, cannot enter directly. So there was a kind of high security. Usually the walls were very high, and a lot of deep areas which were known as moats were present there. So moats were very, very important characteristics of Egyptian civilization and the palaces within Egyptian civilization. The next was the public areas. Now within the public areas in the far off regions, if you see, there were temples that were located. Now these temples were important because they were surrounded by high walls and had a symmetrical feature. So the feature on this side of the temple and the other side of the temple was exactly the same. So again, very, very important concept that was present there. The next important thing that we need to understand is the great structures, the ancient wonders. So as we saw, the ancient wonders, the Hanging Garden of Babylon in Mesopotamian civilization, here you had the great pyramids of Giza that existed. So two important structures, one is the Great Pyramid of Giza, and the second important structure is the Sphinx, which we would understand in a while. So this is one of the seven wonders of ancient world. So one wonder from the Mesopotamian civilization, which was Hanging Garden of Babylon that we talked, one wonder from Egyptian civilization, and that is the Great Pyramid of Giza that we see. The next important thing is the Sphinx. Now as you could see, this is the Sphinx, and this is the body of a lion with the face of a man that is seen. So if you look onto the various pictures, you would see that this is a kind of Sphinx that is there. You have the face, but what is given in most of the text is just the face. So it appears that it's the face and the body, but it's not that. You can understand this is the front view that we usually see, but there is the depth. The whole body is made up of loin. So if you go behind, you would see that this is a loin structure that is seen. So again, if we go on to this structure, you would see a human face that is located here. These are the legs and this is the body of the lion. So that is how you have the great Sphinx of Giza. Now Sphinx were mythological creatures, very, very important part of Egyptian civilization, and they were basically kind of very important structure in the mythological process that we say about the Egyptians. The next was the societal division. Now lower caste, middle class and upper class was the division, similar to what we have seen in the Mesopotamian civilization. The lower class included the slaves, those working. The middle class were mainly those which were merchants, manufacturers, and upper class included the priests, the kings, and the government officials, the doctors, who had a well-renowned position in the society. The next important characteristic that we need to understand is about the family life. So if you look onto the family life, father was considered as the head of the family. Mother had equal rights with father, and mother also had, or women also had, the property rights. The children enjoyed a very good life. The life was carefree, so no burden, and they were free to do what they wanted to. But this was a kind of intercaste approach that was seen in the Mesopotamian civilization. In Mesopotamian civilization, children were brought under strict guidance, and they had to follow a strict discipline. Girls were more inclined to dance and music in the Mesopotamian civilization, but here the children were sent to schools. They enjoyed the life after school, and it was a carefree and a life full of freedom, where they had even the option to have recreation as much as they are looking for. The next thing that we focus on is agriculture. As we said, wheat and barley, two staple crops in agriculture. Wheat was used to make the bread, and barley was used to make the beer. So bread and beer was the main staple diet of the people of Egyptian civilization. Domestication of animals, mainly for poultry and for moving the load, was mainly seen. So you had goats, then you had camels, donkeys, that were mainly seen. Now that was the kind of agriculture that existed, and the kind of domestication of plants, the domestication of animals that was there. The next important thing is the dressing. Now Egyptian civilization is known for the production of cotton. Now, cotton across the globe, the Egyptian cotton is considered as one of the finest cottons that could be seen. Now, linen was made from the cotton that was produced, and this linen, for men it was a lion cloth that was built that was tied onto the waist, and for women it was a complete dress with a shoulder strap that was seen. So that was mainly in white. So dressing was only in white. No colors were used with cotton. So cotton thread was made and white was the color that was standard, as a standard color that was used. So dressing became an important. Then along with dressing, trade. So cloth and cotton were two commodities that were mainly meant for export. Besides that, you had jewelry and furnitures that was also seen. When it comes to import, gold was one of the major imports that was seen. Ivory, copper, precious gems were seen as imports. Now, these imports led to establishment of numerous goldsmiths within the town that was seen. So trade definitely existed with both Indus Valley and Mesopotamian civilization. Now the next was the process of mummification. Now this is one of the necropolis which is known as Saqqara. Now these necropolises had the region where you had the mummification. So most of the tombs of the pharaohs was the pyramids. Now mummification was a process where the body was wrapped with some solution so that this body remains and is not basically decomposed, and all the required things, as we discussed before, which could be food, clothing, ornaments, were kept with the body with the belief that there exists a life after death. But this whole process of mummification, as it is called as, is very, very important because it shows exceptional development in the field of medical sciences of the Egyptian civilization. So Egyptian civilization was known for its medicinal development, for its scientific development, and also for advancement in sciences. The next important thing that we need to understand here is understanding the scenario of how religion existed. So Ra god, as you can see in the center here, the Ra god was one of the major gods, and the Ra god was considered as the sun god. Ra god had two children, it's believed, and they were the brothers and the sisters. So those are the Osiris and the Isis. Osiris is believed to be the god of underworld, so god of death. Isis is believed to be the god of health and wisdom, good luck. So among all these gods, you had Ra, the sun god, which was considered as the father god for Osiris and Isis, and these three gods are considered as the major gods in the Egyptian civilization, and then you do have other gods that were present. The next important thing that we need to understand here is the script. So the script here was heliographic script. Now the heliographic script is basically a picture script similar to the Chinese civilization that we'll study in the next lectures. Now here there were pictures that denoted things. Now as you could see, you have birds and a lot of you have pots, you have hands, you have lions. So a lot of the things are those which even we who do not know a heliographic script could easily depict. Now heliographic script was a script that was written from right to left, in contrast to the cuneiform script of Mesopotamian civilization from left to right. So what you usually write in a notebook is left to right. Most of the Arabic writings, Persian writings are from right to left. So moving from right to left is what is a heliographic script. As we said, you had pictures, more than 2000 pictures were present, 24 consonants and no vowels were present in their vocabulary. So heliographic script has been deciphered and definitely one of the major studies that we have seen. Now as we said, the pyramids to which we would move again. So from the Great Pyramid of Giza to the Pyramid of Kharpan, which is another important pyramid here. Now within the Pyramid of Giza, you have this pyramid, these pyramids which were considered places where the which were considered as places which were the tombs of the pharaohs or the rulers during that time, and these were the places where the mummies were kept, and they are still preserved. So definitely advancement in science was one of the major things that we need to understand. Egyptians were the first to introduce solar calendar. They talked about 365 days, 360 days with 12 months of 30 days each, and 5 days were kept exclusively for religious or festive seasons. So 5 days were considered as a part of their festive period in their life. And also they had development of ink. Ink was made from soot, and that was one of the ways they used to inscribe and write. So those were some of the major developments that we have seen with the Egyptian civilization. Just to recap once again, you have the Great Pyramids, you have the mummification, the process of mummification, that is important, the trade relations that existed with other regions, Sphinx, the body of the head of a man and a body of a lion, which was one of the mythological figures. Then you have the Ra, which was the sun god, and Osiris and Isis, which were the brothers and the sisters and the son and the daughter of the Ra or the sun god. So Osiris was the god of underworld, and Isis was the god of health and wisdom. Similarly, we have cloth being manufactured. Herodotus believed that Egyptian civilization is a gift of Nile. Now, lastly, it was attacked by Alexander the Great, and that was a kind of development that we have seen in the Egyptian civilization. Town planning indeed is very, very important when it comes to Egyptian civilization or any other civilizations. We have seen the same in the Mesopotamia, and the same goes with the Harappa and the Chinese civilization. So we would be covering other major civilizations of the world in the upcoming sessions. Stay tuned, stay subscribed. We'll be bringing many more interesting lectures for you. Have a wonderful day ahead.